Hello. Today I'm going to be talking to you about paths in coding. Paths are defined as the combination of branches that you can traverse through the runtime of your program. Now, paths are used in what we call code coverage when checking for the validity of your software. So, for example, let's say within your software you have a certain switch statement where you can go down a certain list of cases and your user will input a specific data type to activate this switch statement. Let's just say it's a character. If one of your cases is per se H and your user types in the letter H, it'll go down that specific case and execute what is under that case. Okay, so with paths, we do what is called path testing in order to make sure that our software works. Now, path testing is going down every single path to make sure that every single path is executable and runs correctly. So by doing this, we're going to go through every single branch to make sure that every single branch will get us to our end goal. So, for example, let's use a real-world example to show how we can go down every path to get to our final destination. On a pictorial example of how we can do path testing. Now, here I've shown that we have a starting objective and we have a final goal. Now, in terms of coding, we can see this as a starting point to where we first started programming and the end result of our program. So, let's start on one of the paths, let's say. We'll start on this path here. So as you can see, if you follow this path and you follow the line, you'll get to your goal. Now this is testing one of our paths. And i.e., usually within these paths, in terms of code, there will be certain branches that you can branch off with in between to get there. Now, if we test another path, let's test the straight line. Let's test the straight line path. So we go up, we go up, we go up, we go up, we go up. We get to the goal, no problem. Now, let's test this path here. Now we go on this path, and what you'll notice is we stop. Now, what this tells us in coding is that our path testing has failed, and that if we execute every single path, we're not necessarily going to get to the goal, which would result in us having to re-edit the program. And so in this case, although I'm not going to show you in code, I'll show you that if we were to just, let's say, get rid of this obstacle and drew it up back to the goal, we're at our goal. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the coding example of paths. So we start off with our function int main. And so within our function, we've decided that we're going to initialize an integer x, and we're going to allow our user to input that value x. So then this brings us to our actual paths. So I initialized a switch called choice, where we're going to take the value of x and determine which of the cases applies. So here we have case 1, which will show us that if you pick the number 1 when your user inputs it, then it'll see out this statement. Then if they pick 2 as their inputted value, it'll see out this statement. Now this default case, what this will do is that if they didn't input any of these cases, it'll default to this. So what we would do as programmers is first go to the first value, in this case 1, and input it here. Then what we would do is we would go to our second value and input that value up here. Then finally we would input some other value to make sure that this would always come out as the case.